Listen, I need to be completely upfront with you right now. I've been in this line of work for quite a while, a really long while, and I have absolutely never encountered a situation quite like the one I'm preparing to reveal to you. Not once. And when I express that, I want you to grasp that I don't throw those words around casually because I've witnessed so much. I've absorbed countless narratives, and what materialized for you today is something I truly didn't believe could happen. What you achieved, what you genuinely managed to accomplish during this lifetime. I wasn't even aware a human being could manage that. And the second I comprehended the reality of what I was witnessing, I was forced to pause. I literally had to drop all my tasks and just reflect on it for a moment, a good 5 minutes. Because what you accomplished wasn't merely surviving. What you achieved was stepping directly into the most harrowing realm conceivable, the exact spot where your entire story was meant to conclude. Yet you emerged holding on to something that wasn't intended for you to retain, and you held on to it regardless. Here is the vision. I continuously visualize your journey, envision your existence. Your life resembled a gorgeous estate, your home, the exact place you were destined to inhabit. And at some point down the road, somebody faked your signature, completely forged it. They then surrendered the access keys to your adversary, and you found yourself standing out on the pavement, observing them, watching them settle inside and bolt every individual entrance. However, this message isn't about politely tapping on the door. This is about arriving with a supreme legal mandate from the ultimate power that ever reigned. You didn't plead to get your residence returned. You executed a complete property reclamation. You marched right into that main hall, tossed their luggage onto the front steps, swapped out every deadbolt, and the title to your ultimate fate is presently, lawfully, and forever restored under your identity. You snatched your future right back from the darkness. Not in a poetic sense, not as some clever little saying. You literally ventured inside, into the very abyss of the forces attempting to ruin you, and you claimed it. And currently, the shadows possess absolutely no advantage over you. None. They hold no entitlement, no access, and no lawful permission to ever approach your doorstep again. And I need you to comprehend precisely how. That transpired because I assure you, you lack any concept of how incredibly potent your recent actions truly are. Allow me to begin at the origin. Because the vibration I am sensing, radiating from your spirit, is not coincidental. There is a unique quality regarding you and nature, a distinct trait regarding how you remain tied to this material realm, to the soil beneath your feet, to the essential core of existence. It's as if you physically sense shifts in your core before your brain even processes them. As if you perpetually sensed an event was approaching prior to its manifestation, even if you lacked the words for it. That profound bond, that deep-seated grounding, that is genuinely a factor in why everything became incredibly difficult. A sheer paradox. Because when you experience matters with such intensity, and then the bleak moments arrive, they don't merely graze your exterior. They penetrate completely, entirely to your very core. And they certainly did, correct? You endured a specific ordeal, a chain of events that the vast majority of individuals would never have recovered from. I am not stating this merely to compliment you. I am expressing this because what I am sensing is truly astonishing in its sheer magnitude. There was immense sorrow involved, genuine emotional devastation. The variety that doesn't merely wound your ego, the variety that alters the very structure of your identity, of who you perceive yourself to be. Disgrace was present, remorse was present, terror so profound it seemed to reside inside your very skeleton. There were periods where the iteration of yourself that lived prior to the chaos seemed like an unknown entity, like an absolute foreigner, as if that individual, the one possessing a hunger for existence, the one who desired experiences without feeling sorry about it, had been swapped out for a softer, diminished individual, someone who discovered that craving brings pain. Therefore, it feels safer to desire fewer things. But here is the reality regarding that silent, significantly shrunken adaptation of yourself. That iteration became incredibly adept at endurance, highly skilled at accommodating everybody else around them, at chuckling at the appropriate beats, at speaking the proper phrases, at remaining pleasant to accompany. Yet no one, absolutely no one realized the toll it took. No one noticed you lingering in the background of your own existence, observing alternative folks occupying the territory you had surrendered, sensing that empty, vacant sensation within your heart that you failed to articulate to a single soul because you barely comprehended it internally yourself. You simply recognized a vital piece was absent. You understood a specific fragment of your identity had been submerged, yet a fraction of your spirit, highly stubborn and unyielding, rejected allowing that to serve as the conclusion of your journey. And this is exactly where things turn unusual. Because the majority of humans, when they endure that specific brand of shadow, the genuine variety that rattles your core stability, they emerge on the opposite end, and they have simply endured. That is all. That becomes the victory. The fact that they survived the storm. They remain on their feet, and that is valid. That holds weight. That certainly counts for something. However, that isn't the outcome that unfolded for you. The scenario that occurred with you is an event I have sincerely never witnessed. I have never observed it depicted in this manner previously. And I wish to attempt breaking it down, because I believe once you absorb it, a piece of your soul will identify it instantly. You didn't merely navigate the shadows. You marched inside intentionally, not because you desired to do so. Heavens, absolutely not. However, because a deep instinct within you recognized, even during moments of sheer terror, even when it appeared you were sacrificing fragments, or rather your entire world, that the single path to freedom was moving directly forward. And while you remained trapped in that space, existing as the most profound, humbled, and completely dismantled iteration of your being, while residing in a territory where all things caused agony and zero logic remained, and the embarrassment seemed prepared to devour you entirely, you began performing an incredible feat. You commenced collecting. I am unsure of a better way to articulate this. Allow me to clarify. You began retrieving, pulling elements from within the blackness, items that various individuals had abandoned, vibrations, wisdom, fragments of your own soul, fragments of alternative individuals, others, and their unique journeys. Everything piling up, all of those elements stacking together as you navigated across the absolute harshest landscapes of your personal existence. And those entities, those vibrations, the very elements designed to eliminate you, they remained observing. They were dispatched to destroy you, to ensure you remained defeated, to guarantee your narrative concluded at the absolute bottom. Yet rather than succeeding, they witnessed you execute an action they had absolutely never encountered previously. They observed you nurture your own spirit back to vitality through the most agonizing, unappealing, isolated, unseen method imaginable. 0 spectators, 0 cheering. Merely you sitting within the shadows, selecting your own worth repeatedly and consistently when every surrounding indicator whispered, "Surrender." Then a monumental shift occurred. This is the specific detail that astounds me. This is the element I needed to process deeply. Because the truth I am gathering is that those exact entities, those forces designed to shatter you, began to switch allegiances. That represents the sole terminology I possess to describe it. They rebelled against their purpose. They had been observing for an extended period. monitoring the burdens you maintained, observing the selections you finalized, studying the manner in which you navigated agony without allowing the pain to render you malicious, without letting it force you shut, without permitting it to mold you into a lesser version of your true self. And an element within those shadows reacted to that strength. It's almost as if your sheer defiance against transforming into what the abyss desired you to be proved so formidable that it genuinely enlisted the gloom to join your ranks. I completely understand how bizarre that appears. I realize it. I do. I am usually skeptical too, yet remain focused on my words because this is what you must comprehend. The elements dispatched to break you, the sorrow, the humiliation, the panic, the instances that forced you to the ground. You extracted value from every single piece of it. You absorbed the wisdom. You absorb the profundity. You internalize the comprehension of exactly what existing in the absolute trenches feels like, ensuring you would never glance at another individual in agony without recognizing precisely what comfort they require. You claimed this power, and you recruited the enemy's strongest assets, not through aggression, not through dominance, but through compassion, through this unbelievable, illogical, utterly perplexing adoration for your own being, and for an existence that you somehow preserved even as your surroundings attempted to snuff you out entirely. And presently, those entities, those teachings, that immense profundity, that shadow, it operates on your behalf. It stands firmly behind you. It fights in your arena. The very obstacles designed to terminate you currently serve as the elements rendering you invincible, completely unconquerable. That is the true definition of reclaiming your stolen fate. Contemplate what a destined path resembles once it has been ripped away from your grasp. You recognize that sensation intimately. Perhaps you have existed within a variation of that reality. The sensation of observing your personal journey from a remote vantage point. The awareness of realizing you possess the capacity for far greater things, yet remaining incapable of tapping into them. As if those potentials are trapped behind a transparent barrier. As if an unseen barricade remains standing between the iteration of yourself currently breathing and the iteration you were destined to become. As if your journey was diverted. As if your trajectory was stolen at some juncture, leaving you stranded within this current reality, which is acceptable. It remains endurable. It's fine, yet it absolutely isn't the primary mission you incarnated to fulfill. You were able to sense the outline of whatever remained, absent even if the exact vocabulary escaped you. The shadows assumed they possessed a mortgage against your tomorrow. That is precisely what it resembled. A hold. An authorized restriction against property that never belonged to them in the first place. The adversary assumed they commanded a fraction of your spirit, that your embarrassment served as a security deposit, that your true essence functioned as an initial installment for a reality that would never entirely be your own property. And whenever you diminished your presence, whenever you silenced your own opinions, whenever you surrendered your territory, it resembled handing over penalty fees for a loan you completely refused to authorize. However, this is the element they failed to anticipate, the detail they miscalculated. The transparent barrier constructed above your crown didn't merely fracture, it completely exploded. And that outstanding balance has been entirely wiped out. Every individual hijacked season is presently being refunded directly into your spiritual ledger alongside premium dividends, with massive dividends. The litigation targeting your soul has been thrown out with absolute finality, signifying it cannot lawfully, energetically, or ever be reintroduced into the courtroom of your life. And currently, you stand here on the opposite shore with every force that attempted to ruin. You firmly placed in your rearview mirror. Reflect upon what your self-assurance used to resemble. Your vocal power. your conviction that you possessed the right to occupy a room, your intuition that you were worthy of the desires you harbored, your bond with the iteration of your spirit that refused to beg for approval. The entirety of it was stolen fraction by fraction during every difficult trial, every act of treachery, every instance you shrank yourself merely to endure, just to endure, ripped away. And subsequently, you reclaimed the entire lot. You genuinely marched back inside and repossessed it. Not instantaneously. Absolutely not. Gradually, agonizingly, within the shadows, while zero eyes were monitoring, when absolutely zero prestige was attached to the process, when it consisted solely of you executing the decision repeatedly to invest back into your own cup rather than draining your reserves, to place faith in a vision you remained unable to physically witness, to continue pushing onward towards a reality that appeared so utterly distant that surrendering faith seemed like the simpler route. Yet you refused to halt. You never surrendered. And whenever you selected your own well-being inside that gloom, you were snatching an element back, a fragment of your power, a fragment of your innate value, a fraction of your tomorrow, a portion of the existence that was eternally destined to belong to you. You literally just shattered the ancestral cycle that kept your entire bloodline restricted. I need you to truly absorb those words, not merely your own spirit, your entire ancestry. The ancestors who walked the earth prior to your existence, who lacked the proper resources, lacked the conscious awakening, lacked the exact magic you unearthed within the abyss of your absolute darkest trials. That shackle has been destroyed. And your descendants, your tribe, every soul who follows in your footsteps, they are granted permission to commence their journey from an elevated starting point entirely due to the actions you finalized in the shadows while zero spectators were observing. That does not represent a minor achievement. That represents the entire universe. And the restricted access warning is currently officially posted across your soul. That isn't merely an emotion. That remains a hard truth. The shadows are permanently barred and possess zero authorized territory to occupy. You have ceased responding to their manipulations. You are commanding the steering wheel completely, at long last. You exposed their deception. Because they were projecting guilt this entire duration, resting on the opposite side of the desk, holding terrible cards, pretending they retained authority above your spirit. And you eventually stared directly into their pupils and demanded, "Reveal your true hand." And they held absolutely zero. They possessed. They have perpetually possessed zero leverage. Your designated path is no longer experiencing reconstruction. Its doors are fully unlocked. And this is exactly what I truly need you to absorb, because I believe this represents the concept you most urgently require comprehending in this exact second. You have remained so fixated on the trauma you outlasted that you failed to properly acknowledge the empire you constructed. You remain so accustomed to downplaying the immense power you hold, simply because for such an extended era, allowing yourself to be perceived seemed entirely hazardous. Allowing yourself to be noticed seemed as though it summoned, as if it attracted further agony. As a result, you have sincerely failed to witness the exact magic other individuals perceive whenever they share your presence. And I require you to view this reality clearly. Individuals are absolutely captivated by your energy, not due to any act you execute or showcase, but strictly because of your authentic essence. Due to the profoundness, due to the reality that you journeyed into realms the vast majority strictly avoid and returned holding something deeply authentic. That does not equate to zero. That equates to absolute magic. That represents the specific element that remains impossible to fabricate, counterfeit, or purchase. That represents the exact quality that was perpetually destined to serve as your ultimate offering. And it was genuinely hammered into shape within the precise abyss you assumed was annihilating you. You represent far more than a mere survivor. You stand as the individual gripping the official ownership documents right now. That represents the mental pivot I need you to execute internally. Never just a survivor, an absolute owner. The legitimate proprietor who recently expelled a trespasser, who just took back their rightful chair at the banquet, who recently marched directly back inside the residence that perpetually belonged to them and declared, "I have returned, and my departure is canceled." The chatter bouncing around your skull, the whisper insisting you remain inadequate, that implies you remain shattered, that claims the authentic iteration of your spirit remains hidden in some obscure location and you have yet to locate it. That specific whisper is deceiving you. That sound is merely a phantom. That sound represents the final lingering reverberation of an entity that previously commanded dominance over your mind but currently holds zero influence because you no longer reside within those trenches. You are absolutely no longer trapped at rock bottom. You successfully navigated through the storm. You stand firmly on the opposite shore. And the reality that the whisper continues to linger, continues to echo, does not serve as evidence of its validity. It serves as evidence that you became so accustomed to merely existing that you have yet to completely process the reality that the battlefield is quiet. You emerged victorious. The conflict has concluded, and you claimed the crown. And your authentic reality, your genuine essence, currently functions as your armor. The shadows retain absolutely zero leverage against your spirit because your authenticity serves as an impenetrable barrier. There remains zero material for them to reveal, zero ammunition anyone can weaponize against you, zero secrets they can utilize to intimidate you because you already ventured deep into the most harrowing chapter of your personal narrative and you returned gripping the reins with your own two palms. The narrative belongs entirely to your spirit now. You incarnated on this earth for a purpose, a highly specific mission, a task that strictly you could execute, utilizing precisely the trials you have endured and precisely the profundity you have navigated, and utilizing the exact brand of devotion you miraculously preserved for your own soul and for existence itself, even when logic dictated otherwise. You arrived in this realm to gather the fragments, to return those vital pieces to their rightful origin, to embody the exact type of soul whose mere aura alters the frequency of an entire space, the dynamic of an intimate bond, and naturally, an individual's complete perception of their own worth. That remained the ultimate assignment from day one, and absolutely every obstacle designed to derail that journey merely transformed into the exact mechanism ensuring its success. Therefore, I need you to absorb this reality. Not merely as an abstract idea, not as a pleasant compliment a stranger typed to you across the digital web. However, treat it as a factual event that genuinely transpired. You ventured inside. You marched completely into the core of the abyss. You refused to allow the agony to render your heart malicious. You refused to permit the trauma to barricade your spirit. You nurtured your own soul back to vitality through the most agonizing, intensely personal, profoundly unappealing method imaginable. And by executing that feat, you successfully enacted the absolute most monumental property reclamation I have personally ever observed. You arrived holding the supreme mandate. You swapped out the deadbolts. You took back ownership of every single corridor. And presently, you remain standing inside the main hall of your personal ultimate fate. Inside the exact estate that perpetually held your signature on the official documentation. And the front steps remain spotless. And the deadbolts are entirely new. And the restricted access warning is proudly displayed. And the task is complete. The darkness holds absolutely zero power over your existence. Not a single item remains available for theft. Not a single entity remains worthy of your fear within the shadows. Because you have already explored those exact trenches. and you returned carrying significantly more value than you initially carried inside. You are absolutely sufficient. You have perpetually remained entirely adequate. And the iteration of your spirit rapidly approaching, the one currently breathing right now in reality, in this very second, in this exact breath, assuming you hold the willingness to acknowledge it. That specific iteration is marching onward, carrying the entire arsenal, wielding the brilliance alongside the profundity, alongside absolutely every entity that previously attempted to halt your progress, currently and permanently serving as loyal allies in your corner. The past has vanished entirely, and whatever approaches next represents far more magic than you have permitted your mind to envision thus far. Therefore, inhale deeply. You accomplished this feat. You genuinely achieved this reality. And I have absolutely never, throughout my entire career operating in this space, witnessed a single soul execute exactly what you just achieved.